Our next speaker is Manvi Bhalla, who is the co-founder and president of Shake Up the Establishment. She is a leader in taking an intersectional approach towards addressing inequalities in health and well-being for underserved groups. Manvi has 10 years of community organizing experience in areas such as gender-based violence, income inequality, poverty, menstrual health product accessibility, sexual education advocacy, sustainable agriculture, food insecurity, health inequalities. Shake Up the Establishment, which is the organization she developed, created a nonpartisan youth-led organization that aims to take this credible evidence-based information approach and make it readily available to Canadians, particularly youth, to help provide them and make informed decisions in their life, including in voting, including in advocacy, and holding politicians accountable, especially on issues surrounding human rights and social justice and the environment, especially the climate crisis. Manvi, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We look forward to hearing from you and from your experiences.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Really great. I've been listening to all of the presentations, and also really good to be on a panel with my friend Chuck. Like amazing insights as always. Talking and hearing from you is so wonderful for my worldview. So along some of the stuff that was just said so beautifully, we actually touch on some of the similar points, and it makes sense because we talk about this stuff a lot. So I'll just kick it off. I do want to read off my positionality statement because I think that it also speaks a little bit to the topic of mental health, because it is something that is very near and dear in kind of good and bad ways. So if anybody, doesn't want to read the screen, just close your eyes and, listen to my somewhat annoying, scratchy voice. Okay. So as I often ground my bare feet on the grass upon the unceded Musqueam territories that I am grateful to live, work, and thrive upon at present, I often breathe in the summer breeze, and I let it fill me with emotion. I thank the trees and I drink chai, hoping some of the peace that I often feel would transcend to my ancestors, to let them know that the world they wish for us all will manifest in due time, and that their efforts were not for nothing. I want to acknowledge with pride my ancestry as a Sikh woman from Punjab, while also acknowledging that I've grown up in what is currently Canada almost all of my life. I often reflect upon the honor of both being a woman of color and, importantly, of being someone who sees, experiences, and interacts with the world using a neurodiverse view. I have very severe ADHD. I am a very chatty person. And I was only diagnosed in adulthood, so there's so much that I went through in my life not knowing this about myself. But this diagnosis really offered me clarity towards the unique struggles that I've encountered in my life within a world that is not built to accommodate my neurodivergence. But I also see this as an intrinsic part of me. It's a superpower that enables me to be passion-driven, dynamic, quick, and an immensely creative intellectual. As an academic and a community organizer, I recognize the duty that I have to offer representation for others that share my intersections of identity. And I find strength in using my lived experiences to inform my activism practice. I also find healing, and maybe some of you do this as well, but I find healing in maintaining connections to my ancestral roots. I do acknowledge that I have privileges to my access to post-secondary education and being able to volunteer my time. There are so many voices of my peers, particularly my Indigenous and racialized peers, that go unheard because they're working, living, and thriving as best they can in a world that doesn't guarantee livable wages, income, gender, or racial equity, nor social security in all forms. So I'm very grateful to be here today, but I'm not speaking on behalf of anybody but myself and my experiences. And lastly, I kind of want to position the stuff I'm going to share with you as I move through this space, guided by the practice of centering community voices, and commit to continuing my own learning alongside these efforts. Working in the realm of advocacy for the health and well-being of all that inhabit Turtle Island, I recognize and work to engage others in the idea that we cannot fix the problem that has its roots this deep in colonization without first decolonizing our practices as researchers, educators, and advocates. So I lead by encouraging non-Indigenous allies that wish to help to take up less space where we can, can, offer more to the collective recovery of the land and its peoples, as we are all treaty peoples. And even on unceded territory where I am, I still consider myself having a role within being a caretaker of the land and being a part of the community actively in ensuring that we do have a livable future for everyone here. And so lastly, I think that it's important, all these efforts together will really help us move forward towards our collective liberation from these oppressive systems for my fellow racialized peers and also my Indigenous peers. Going from there, little monologue on me. Now you know a lot about me and my brain, but I kind of wanted to pivot into why it's important to get involved in community organizing. Maybe I can make this bigger. So I think the biggest three reasons for me, and it's very difficult to summarize into three, but I had to make a slide. So I think that the first is community care. It is a form of community care to be able to, as I mentioned, the collective liberation away from systems of oppression. Community care addresses what self-care cannot. So I always say, like, people will ask, oh, what is your favorite self-care strategy? And I'm like, well, I like bubble baths, but that's not going to solve racism. So I think that there has to be a role for taking care of yourself is an act of resistance. And, rest is important because you can't keep working on stuff unless you're good and alive to do it, and as a person with depression, I mean that quite literally. Like, you have to take care of yourself. You have to want to be present in your life and, your environments, whether it's your work environment, your home environment, all your environments have to be happy and safe, and they want to make you feel present and active in these spaces. So self-care is important, but community care solves those systemic issues. And so getting involved in community organizing is the best way to care for other people. And what you'll find is, and this is scientifically backed, so there you go. But gratitude is the best way to feel better. I'm depressed a lot, and gratitude is like, the best thing my therapist ever told me was start making a list of things you're grateful for. And eventually you start feeling like, okay, maybe I can get my feet back on the floor. And I think that practicing community organizing is a way of practicing gratitude for other people and being grateful for your presence and, a presence within these spaces and, within the communities you're in. Another thing is reorienting the problem towards the solution. I'm definitely a person who does not like to dwell in the negatives unless I'm complaining. I get into moods where I'm just complaining, but most of the time you want to just be like, what, let's just solve this problem. And with something like climate change or environmental degradation, environmental racism, any of sort of things of this effect, they are huge intersectoral issues. They have so many different, disciplines involved, people involved, communities involved. It's not an easy problem to solve right away, but playing an active role and just being like, everything that I do is shaping my future. Hopefully that gives you a little bit more agency in a time when we don't really feel like we have a lot as young people. I notice I always talk so fast. My last point is eco grief and eco anxiety. Oh, I feel it like crazy. My master's thesis is on climate change and public health authorities, and it's very sad. They don't really care very much. That was one of my findings. So not a great time to be working on that project, just, because we're currently living amidst this crazy public health crisis. And so I just think, there is a level of eco relief in being involved in different ways, because, for example, in academia, I can't really do much. I just kind of report it and I feel very like, this sucks. But when I'm working in the community organizing sector, I feel like, oh, I can do something about it. I can at least I can yell about it and somebody's listening, or they're paid to listen as a politician, hopefully. So those are three reasons why I think community organizing is a good way. Oh my goodness. Going from there, Shake Up the Establishment is a culmination of all my experiences in this work that I've been doing since very young, because as I mentioned too, I have ADHD and I just like doing stuff, and it's so fun to just get involved in your community. So I think that some of the things that we've actively done at Suit, we're always learning, constantly learning, and being like, what, that group is doing something really cool that is making people happier, and if it's making people happier, that's what we're going to do. That's the way that we make decisions at Suit. We're totally youth-led. And I should mention, Suit is Shake Up the Establishment. We just call it Suit. So some of the things that I wanted to highlight that just came to my mind as I was kind of preparing this was a few of the things that we do purposefully and with intent that I think might be helpful for other people working in this space that want to kind of make spaces that are good for young people to work in and try to center anti-oppressive practices. So I'm just going to read off a couple and annotate, but one of the biggest things we do is we co-design all of our volunteer roles. We just say, don't do any work you don't want to do. So do what experience you want. We don't really care about your skill set. We don't ask for CVs. We just kind of say, like, what do you want to do? What are you passionate about? What are your experiences? What are your lived experiences? And how can you help? You know, just bring what you can to the table, and like, we'll find a place for you. We do have like official titles, but the actual responsibilities people do, they vary even within the titles. Like if somebody doesn't want to do something, we don't make them do it. You know, there will always be people that want to do it. And we have an amazing team of 40 people that do completely different things, every single person. And that's just an amazing ecosystem to work in, because we recognize every single person plays a big role and everybody feels really valued, but they get to do stuff that they're passionate about. And intrinsic motivation comes from that. Volunteering, which we have paid positions as well. But in the context of volunteering, a lot of the motivation comes from you wanting to do something about it. And you want to foster that fire. You want to keep that fire alive. You don't want to, like, burnout is a colonial concept. We don't need burnout. That doesn't need to exist. We've made it up. So let's just forget about it. You know, let's only make environments people actually want to work in, because who cares about the rest? Healthy relationships with notifications. We work online. It's really important, you know, and also like really clear communication strategies. We have like a 50-page operations manual, and I swear to God, half of it is dedicated to how we should talk to each other in a way that's both culturally safe, trauma informed, and also just in general, decent human being, you know, especially if you have a crisis and you want to take time off, totally no problem. But we almost have an inbuilt procedure for healthy boundaries. So by making the workspace force you to develop healthy boundaries, for me as a person who initially had a lot of difficulty, and I still sometimes do, it's great because I'm forced to have healthy boundaries. I'm forced to communicate, like, this is my availability. This is not. Currently, I'm emotionally unavailable to do this job, but I will be available in the near future. So we have these like checks and balances in place. And, you know, that's really important for us. No questions asked, time off anytime, because who cares? You know what? The situation's not going to be over in a day. Let's just like live our lives. We have to realize we're human beings. We're not robots. That's something that I learned on my antidepressants. So again, if you're prescribed medicine, take them. They're really great for you if you would like to. I just think there's a huge stigma against it, and there shouldn't be, because, you know, I think that things that help you feel better are good for you. So just as a side note, do things that are good for you. Number one priority, safe spaces, really, really important for us. It's like above all else. Sometimes we even have decisions we're making and we have to decide between two things. And the way we decide is we say, which one helps us maintain the safety of our space? Which one continues to help people, allow for them to be authentically themselves? Which one XYZ. So, you know, we'll go in that line of thought. That's pretty much how we make most of our decisions at Suit, is just, is this going to maintain the safety of the space? Is this in line with our values, our anti-oppressive practices? Let's give it a thought, come back. That's how we decide what we do. For example, we're going on a 3-month hiatus after the federal election. We worked really hard. Sneak peek, we have a huge campaign plan for this election. It's called Not Voting Effing Sucks. And it's just for youth, by youth. It's great. It's going to drop the minute that the campaign goes, like minute that the federal election is called, if it's called on Sunday. But we decided, okay, we worked really hard. Let's take 3 months off. So, you know, October to December, we still have pre-planned stuff, but a lot of our team members are in school. We're young, whether you're paid or not, you deserve time off. So we're just going to do that. And the climate crisis, we're going to pass the baton, because we know so many of you are working hard on this issue that if we rest and come back ready to work, pass the baton back, you know, and that's the mentality that we have across Suit. Promoting horizontal learning from each other is really important for us, because we, again, it's part of the safe space thing. We don't always have the same lived experience as other people. We have to allow for there to be a safe enough space for conversation that isn't oppressive, but we have to be able to talk to each other and learn from each other, and also be able to take criticism from each other. But we practice the idea of relationship building above anything else. So in that way, we know that the criticism isn't coming from a place of competition or productivity. It's coming from a place of love. So I think that if that is centered in your workspace, you will find that you just love it. We just like, everybody's just on Slack 24/7, because we're just a big family. And the last two things that I kind of want to mention, because I did mention relationship building, is they're kind of related to me. I noticed that, you know, so many people working in this space, there is this degree of competition, whether it's for funding or for opportunities, or two people doing the same thing. And what I find frustrating about that is that that is based in this deficit mindset. And that harms our mental health as young people working in the sector. We should be collaborating on everything we do. We don't have to fight for the 3 funding opportunities that the federal government gives us, you know? But then in those paradigms, we're pitted against each other, and it's just so detrimental towards the progress we're making. So a big part of the work we do is relationship building with people in the sector. We also just believe that, like, within intra to the organization and inter to other organizations, the biggest thing for us is do not feed into this mentality. It's not good for within the organization. It's not good for outside of the organization. It's just not good for anybody, even in your other parts of your life, you know, in academia, in school and research. These things, this is like a trap. Don't let it catch you. If you feel that way, ignore it. Don't even think about it. It's all made up. And so we really want to prioritize well-being over productivity. Humans are what matter to us. And the big thing is impact over influence. So it's like, we might not get all the money, we might, you know, not do all the work, but if everything we do, we feel like we had a good impact and we work directly with the communities, that also helps our work. And so the big reason I wanted to mention these things is that these all relate to the way that we also, kind of how Chuck was mentioning, like the space that we create impacts the way that we work. And that this is how we maintain these positive spaces when reports like the IPCC report comes out and you just feel like, what are we going to do about it? But then you have this safe space. We have like positive vibes channel, all these channels on Slack. We have all these like ways of being a community, and social isolation is a big reason why mental health is such a prevalent thing. So we break that social isolation by promoting collaboration, by promoting relationship building. And these things are really anecdotal towards that isolation. And lastly, I just want to say, like, give what you can, take what you need. You don't have to be all these people. You can be 1 or 2 of them. You can be none of them. You know, there's so many more. These are just a few of the ones that we see in Suit. So we kind of made this, and I often guest lecture, and I'll show this because I want to tell people that there's so many different places for you in this kind of work. But realizing that us working together is what gets us to where we're going. And it also keeps us healthy and safe. And it makes it fun because it is a very upsetting topic, to say the least. We already know that. By making healthy boundaries with like knowing your skill set, but also being open to growing, learning from each other, being like, you know, I'm not this person, but I know you are. Let's work together. These are ways that we grow in the sector. But I just think that these things are really important to kind of make this place of activism a happier place to be, you know? So I'll cut myself off there. And yeah, that's all.
Manvi, I can't even begin to tell you how awesome that was. I was smiling like ear to ear throughout the whole thing. There's so much value in what you just shared, especially for the well-being of folks in the NGO space where, you know, they are trying to keep doing this work. They are trying to keep their spirits up, their family spirits, their colleague spirits. You know, the perspective that you took on this, like, I really hope you can share those slides, because again, and I'll include it in the email that we sent to everyone, because, you know, just endless good ideas, like, you know, the ability to, you know, take time, right, to look at what you need to do and then say, hey, is this going to help us in our safe spaces? Is this building a meaningful relationship? Is this a good idea? And then just deciding. And I will say the nicest thing I liked about what you said was about, you know, having a bubble bath is not going to solve the climate crisis. I laughed at that. That's awesome. That was awesome. It made me kind of want to have a bubble bath myself, you know, after organizing these events. Like, I'm sure my colleagues would agree that, you know, having that self-care and that community care is so important. So again, thank you very much for sharing your perspective, your voice. It was awesome. It was awesome. No other words. Thank you. And I see Sonia saying she wants a bubble bath. There we go. So it's like, this is our way to help everyone get better. Thank you so much, Manvi.